Hello everyone and welcome to Blank First Page. My name is Lucas. In this video I've got a rather weird and wonderful desk accessory to share with you. First, a bit of a story. So I'm half Maltese on my father's side. My grandmother has always lived in Malta. Malta is a tiny island nation in the middle of the Mediterranean. At the time of the Second World War, Malta was part of the British Empire, and it served a strategic purpose for the fighting of the Second World War. Malta has primarily two main islands, Malta and Gozo. Malta is the main island where all the military bases were, and Gozo has always been like a more rural, more quiet place to be. So one thing that a lot of people did if they were not directly involved in the war effort was to move to Gozo because it was slightly safer there. At the time, my grandmother's aunt had a house in Gozo where she would host and shelter people from the war efforts. And one of the people she hosted for a number of months during this time was a priest. And to thank her for her hospitality and for her care, he gave her a gift. And at the time when he gave this to her, it was already considered an antique. I don't have the exact dates for any of this, but the Second World War ended 1945. If at that time this item was an antique, it has to be at least 50 years old. So what I'm going to show you in this video is most probably from the late 1800s. The reason I have this now is that it was gifted by my grandmother to my wife over Christmas. So this is an item that has been regifted many times, but a regift with nice intentions. So let's reveal it and then we'll talk about what it actually is. So I've placed the item in this box just for the sake of the video to have an unboxing. Everyone likes unboxings. This is an old Field Notes box, and in it we have this packaging. This is a great example of frugal grandmother packaging. The only thing I've added is the rubber band. And this is how it was gifted, which is just fantastic. So this item is a finger wetter. In the time before everything was a screen, you'd read a lot of books, you'd have a lot of notebooks around, so your desk was largely occupied by books and papers. And one of the things you have to do a lot when you have lots of books and papers is to turn pages. And rather than doing the disgusting licking your finger to get some friction to turn the page, and also as a result of that putting all the germs that were on the page into your mouth, a more hygienic way of doing that is to have an item like this, which you fill with water, and when you then press it in, your finger gets a little bit wet, gives you that friction to turn the page. I love this because it is such an incredibly specific tool or item, almost unnecessary, but it's from a different age. You can still buy these things, and in fact, I also remember that my grandfather used to play a lot of solitaire at the dining table. He had a modern version of this, which was like a circular disc with a sponge in it, and then he'd always touch his fingers to the sponge before he'd start dealing out the cards. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it a quick clean. I bought some silver cleaning specifically for this. I feel like it's appropriate because it's something grandmothers do as well, is clean the silverware or clean the brassware. And then we'll give it a bit of a test and see how much it helps with our page turning requirements. It is a bit shinier now. I didn't, obviously, I'm sure I can get off more of that tarnishing with maybe a toothbrush or something, but I also don't want it to become too polished. It is over 100 years old and I don't want it to look new. I'll go get a few drops of water, get rid of all this cleaning stuff, and we'll give it a go. Okay, so I've got my finger wetter. I've got some water in this little jug that my wife made. And for page turning purposes, I have this notebook, which is also from my grandmother and grandfather, the same ones who owned this finger wetter at some point. They had a pharmacy. They used to do their accounts in actual ledgers, and so I have a couple of them. These are mostly blank, but they are actually set up for accounts to be written in them before everything was done on a spreadsheet. So we'll see how well this finger wetter works. I have read nothing about this and how it's meant to be used. I'm assuming because this depresses that the water is meant to go under. Maybe there's meant to be a sponge that goes on top. I think it will be fine if I just pour water into it, which is what I'm going to do now. I wonder how watertight it is. Not bad. And I poured a few milliliters of water in there and nothing's really falling out other than a few drops, which is good. And now for the acid test, I suppose. It works. And I was able to turn the page. And don't actually need to push it down that much. It's quite good. I suppose if this can qualify as stationery, it is definitely the oldest piece of stationery that I have. It was really interesting and unusual finding out that such a thing existed, and also that it could be made out of such fine materials. In profile, to me, it looks a bit like a miniature coffee table. So it's actually quite a nice item visually, aesthetically to have on the desk, and it serves a pretty useful, practical function. So there you go. There is something you never knew you wanted or needed, but if you are someone who sits at a desk and reads, or in fact if you just enjoy playing solitaire with real-life cards, this might be an item you want to add to your toolbox. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.